All right, so in this video, we're going to go over how firms in monopolistic competition behave. And the good news is that you already understand monopoly and you already understand competition. This market is really a blend of monopoly and competition, just like the name implies. So to give you just a little bit of a preview here, in the short run, firms in markets with monopolistic competition will behave like monopolies in the short run, but in the long run, we have free entry and exit into and out of the broader market, and so there will be competition. All right, so let's look at our graphs here. You have seen all of the parts of this graph before. We've just combined a few of the different lines that we've been talking about. So you have your demand curve, right? You have your marginal revenue curve, and you have your marginal cost and average total cost curves. So the only real difference between this and the monopoly graph we were looking at is that we've also included our average total cost curve on the graph. And the reason is because it makes it really easy to see, just looking at the graph, what profits are going to look like. And it makes the profit calculation a little bit easier. Okay, so let's dive in here. So in the short run, you've got a monopoly. Again, we're thinking about a market with lots of different individual monopolies. So say like the market for breakfast cereal, right? You've got Kellogg's and all of the other companies that I don't know. But you've got lots of different competition, right? Lucky Charms versus Cheerios versus, right, Cocoa Puffs or whatever people eat now. So in the short run, each firm has a monopoly on producing their individual products. So they simply observe the demand curve for their specific product. Okay, so when we put demand on the graph, we're not talking about demand for breakfast cereal, we're talking about demand for Lucky Charms, right? Demand for their specific product, and then they maximize profit by producing where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Right, so I'm looking here at my graph. Here I have the same, I have two graphs, right? One where I have a high demand curve, okay, and one where I have a low demand curve. And I have on these two graphs the exact same cost curves, okay? So we're pretending here we have the same firm in both situations. We want to see what happens if demand is high, what happens if demand is low, okay? And remember, this is demand for this particular product. So here we have, right, in the high demand curve graph, right, the firm's going to observe that demand curve and the corresponding marginal revenue curve, and then produce where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Then, of course, because they're a monopoly, they're going to raise their price right up to the demand curve. So that will be 140, right? So the price is equal to 140. The quantity is equal to 70. And this firm is going to be earning positive profits. And I know that because my price here at 140 is higher than my average total cost curve. Remember that we can calculate profit as price minus average total cost times quantity. So if I'm going to calculate profit here in the short run, I've got 140 minus, need my average total cost, and then times 70. So to get average total cost, I'm going to go up from a quantity of 70 to my average total cost curve. And then I can see that my average total cost is 111. And this firm is making a profit equal to $2,030 in the short run. And we can even label that profit on the graph. It's going to be the area between price and average total cost out to our quantity of 70, right? So here's our short run profit. let's do the same thing for the low demand graph, and then we'll talk about what happens in the long run. Okay, so same idea here. We've got a different graph. The firm observes their demand curve for their product and the corresponding marginal revenue curve. They're going to produce where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So here we have a quantity of 48, and then we go up to the demand curve to get the price. So they can charge a price of 100. In this case, I know the firm is going to be making negative profits because my price at 100 is below my average total cost curve. That's not good, right? It means the revenue coming in per unit is less than the cost of producing each unit. So this firm is going to be losing money. Here's our average total cost at a quantity of 48. So I can calculate profit, that's price, minus average total cost times quantity. And that would be negative $720. Okay, so this firm would be losing $720 in the short run. And we can show that area on our graph, again, by looking at this rectangle here between price and average total cost and out to our quantity of 48. All right, so in the short term, the firm, just like in regular monopoly, right? The firm observes the demand curve. They're going to calculate marginal revenue. They're going to produce as long as their revenues are bigger than their costs, right? Or until marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. And then they're going to charge the highest price possible, right? So we have the same procedure here for finding short run profit as we do in a monopoly, all right? We've just added our average total cost on there so that we can calculate profit pretty easily just by looking at the graph. All right, so in the short run, the firm behaves like a monopoly. What happens in the long run? Excuse me. So in the long run, in monopolistic competition, firms are going to be entering or exiting the market based on short-run profits. So just like in competition, we have free entry and exit into the broader market for this product. So say it's super profitable to make Lucky Charms, what's going to happen? Other companies are going to try to imitate that cereal, make a similar product, charge a lower price, and capture some of the customers, right? So when profit is positive in the short run, firms will enter the market and what is that going to do for Lucky Charms? It's going to decrease demand for Lucky Charms because now there's more competition, right? Some people will switch to the cheaper alternative, decreasing demand for our product, or say Lucky Charms in this example. So that will decrease demand for this firm's product. And of course, that's going to decrease marginal revenue. It's going to decrease the price that this firm will be able to charge and the quantity that they'll be able to sell, and therefore it will decrease their profits. So when profits are positive in the short run, more firms enter the market, pushing profits down towards zero, kind of just like in long run competition. And then likewise, when profits are negative in the short run, in the long run, some firms are going to leave the market, right? Because if they're losing money day after day, they're going to go out of business. So in the short run, if profits are negative, then in the long run, some firms will exit the market. That's going to increase demand for the products produced by the firms remaining in the market, right? So if some of your competitors go out of business, then more people are going to buy your product. So that'll increase demand for this firm's product. And that means that since demand is increasing, we're going to sell more, we're going to be able to charge a higher price, and that's going to increase profits. So in the long run, if profits are positive, firms enter, pushing profits down. In the long run, if profits are negative, firms are going to exit, pushing profits up. And so just like in perfect competition, firms will be entering or exiting the market until profits are equal to zero. And so the long run equilibrium here occurs where profits are equal to zero. Now, having said that, this is not the same profit equals zero point as we get in perfect competition. It's actually a different point. It's same in the sense that profits are equal to zero in both cases, but it is different in terms of how much each firm is producing, the cost of production, and the prevailing price in that market. So to see that, I'm going to show you here what a long run equilibrium would look like in monopolistic competition. So let me just write that down here. Okay, even though profits are zero in the long run, a market with monopolistic competition does not result in the socially optimal outcome like the perfectly competitive market does. All right, so to see that, let's look at this graph. And these graphs are actually really difficult to draw. So I would never ask you to draw a graph for monopolistic competition. Basically, I would be giving you a graph and then asking you questions about it. Sort of like what we're doing here. Right, so where on this graph is our perfect competition long run equilibrium? You remember? When we're looking at our long run equilibrium in perfect competition, where profits are equal to zero and price is equal to marginal cost, we're going to be at this point here, the intersection of our marginal cost and our average total cost curves. That's our long run equilibrium for perfect competition. Remembering back to topic 11. All right. Now, monopolistic competition is going to be a little bit different because what's going to happen is that demand is going to shift out or in, depending on what short-term profits are, until we reach a point where the firm is setting marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, behaving like a monopoly, but we still get to a zero profit point. And we can see that in this picture. In this picture, the demand curve is such that when we set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, and we raise our price up to the demand curve, we get a zero profit point, where, but it's a different zero profit point than we had in perfect competition, right? And how do I know that I have zero profits at this point? Well, my price is exactly equal to my average total cost, right? So my revenue per unit is equal to my cost per unit, meaning I have zero profits. Okay, so you can see that because each of these firms is a monopoly, we're still distorting the market, right? By decreasing quantity and increasing price so that they're trying to behave like a monopoly to increase their profits, but because there's free entry and exit, it's pushing profits towards zero. This means that Firms earn zero profit, just like in perfect competition, but this is not socially optimal. And we can see that because our price here in monopolistic competition and our average total cost is higher than it was in perfect competition, right? With perfect competition, we'd be producing at a cost of $110 per unit, and consumers would pay $110. But in monopolistic competition, we are producing at a higher cost, $112 per unit, and consumers are also going to have to pay more. All right, so what we can write here then is that our average total cost with monopolistic competition is greater than our minimum average total cost. Why? Because each firm restricts the quantity that they're producing in order to raise their price compared to perfect competition. And that's where all that kind of lost advertising revenue goes, right? These firms are trying to pay for advertising to convince you that their product is better than the other products in the market, right? And they're spending part of their profits to do that. When we have free entry and exit, it's going to drive profits towards zero. And that's how monopolistic competition works. This is, again, representative of a lot of the different markets that we see in the economy, and hopefully it helps you understand that a little bit better. All right, so this is the end of monopolistic competition. In the next video, I will talk about oligopoly. You'll notice that there is a summary table on the next page of your notes that I'm not going to go through in a video, but it basically gives you a summary of all of the markets that we've talked about so far: competition, monopoly, and monopolistic competition. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.